Hi, today we will be doing a rent versus own analysis of a personal residence. I'm Ronald Williams. This is for Dr. Seagrave's real estate course. The first thing that we'll discuss is the yellow slots, which are the givens for the project. And then the very first step in the project is first getting the loan amount, which is done by taking the purchase price and then multiplying it by the loan to value ratio, which gets you $200,000. Second, we'll get the loan and equity calculations, which is first done by getting the annual debt service, which we will get by taking the negative payment. Because we want a positive answer, we're going to get the negative payment, or otherwise it would come out as a outflow, cash outflow. The first thing we'll do is get the rate, which is G8, and then divide it by 12, or the number of payments per year. It could be more or less than 12 if that's the case for you. And then the next thing would be the number of payments per year, which would be the loan in terms years, which is G9. And then multiply that by the number of payments per year, which is in G10. Next, we will get G7, which is the loan amount, and 0, close parentheses, and then we have to multiply that by 12 to get the annual payment, since that's what it's asking for. That gets us $12,883.72. The next step is to get the annual loan constant, which is gotten by taking the annual debt service and dividing it by G7, which is the loan amount. That gets us 6.44%. And then the final step of the loan and equity calculations would be the equity investment, which is done by taking the purchase price and simply subtracting the loan amount, which gets us $50,000. Next, we will do our summary loan schedule, which our first item on the list is the payment, which is done by simply copying this and locking it over so that we can copy it over at another time. Next, we will be doing the balance for the summary loan schedule, which is done by taking the negative present value formula. And the first item for the present value formula is the interest rate divided by the payments per year, and we have to lock both of those. We actually have to add another bracket too so that we can move forward. There we go. And then close the parentheses, and then next we open another parentheses and get the loan term, lock that, and then subtract D25 so that we can subtract the year from the loan term, and then close the parentheses, but we have to multiply that by the payments per year, and then we have to lock that. And then the next part of the formula is the payment, which is done by getting the annual debt service, lock that, and then dividing it by the payments per year, so it's a monthly payment. Close the parentheses, and then 0 future value and 0 type. And that gets us $197,049.27. Next, we have to get our interest, which is done by using the cumulative payment formula. And the first thing in that formula is also the interest rate, which we have to lock. And then you again divide it by the number of payments, which we have to lock. And then the next part is the number of periods, which is done by taking the loan term, locking that, and then multiplying that by the payments per year, and we have to lock that as well. And then the next part is the present value, which is done by taking the loan amount and locking that. And then the start period will be 1, since it's the first month, and then 12 for the last month, and then a 0 type, which gets us $9,932.99. Part of the summary loan schedule, we just have to find the principal paid, which is done by taking the payment and then subtracting the interest from that, which is $29.50 and 73 cents. Now that we've gone through and gotten each of the payment, balance, interest, and principal, we can just copy each of those over, which will get us throughout the years, except for interest, which I'll discuss in a second. For the interest, it's a little different. We have to go through and select each month. For example, this will be 13 to 24, and this will be 25 to 36, and this will be 37 to 48, and this will be 49 to 60. To enter values into our property data table, for year 0 we'll just enter the purchase price, which is $250,000. And then for year 1, what we'll do is take this and multiply by 1 plus C10, which is the property growth rate, but we have to lock that so that we can copy it over. And then we just do this, and then that's it for the property value. Next we'll get our rents by taking the value for the initial rent and then multiplying that by the number of payments per year. And for year 2, we have to do something a little bit different. We have to take the value that we just got from here and then multiply by 1 plus the rental growth rate, which is also 3%, and we're going to have to lock that. And then we can just copy it over in that way. Next we'll do our table for before tax cash flows, and the first item is the property taxes, which will be done by taking C33, which is the property value in year 0, and then multiplying it by C15, which is the property tax percent, and we have to lock that so that we can move it over. And then for the insurance, we'll just copy over the given insurance, which is C11, and for maintenance we'll do the same thing for the maintenance cost, which is C12, and then principal and interest will be done by taking D26 again. Next we'll just have to copy these over. The insurance and maintenance are a little bit different, so we're going to have to take this and multiply it by 1 plus C13, which is the expense growth, and we have to lock that, so that way we can copy that over, and we'll do the same thing for principal and interest. We'll take D41 and multiply that by 1 plus C13 again, and we have to lock that, and then in parentheses copy it over, and we're done. Next, all we have to do for the before tax cash flows now is take the sum of these four numbers and then copy them over, and that is it for the before tax cash flows. Our next table is the tax deductions from owning, and the first item will be the property taxes, which we get from right above at D39, and then the interest, which we get from D28, which is right here, and then the total tax deductions is just adding these two together, and then the tax savings is done by taking the number that we got here and multiplying it by C14, which is the marginal tax rate. We have to lock that so that we can copy it over, select all of these, and then that's the tax deductions from owning. Next table is the net cost of owning, and our first block will be the cash outflows before taxes, which can be found right here at D43. And then we take the tax savings, which we got above right here, and then the after-tax cost is done by taking the difference between these two numbers, and that gets you 17,202, and then we can just copy that over, and that is the net cost of owning. Our next block will be the net cost of renting, which can be done rather simply by taking the numbers we got up here and simply just copying them across. Will be the net cash flow from owning before sales, and the first block will be the cost of renting, which is taking that, and then the cost of owning, which is taking that, and then the after-tax cash flow on own versus rent, is taking the difference between the cost of renting and the cost of owning. Then you just select them and copy them across yet again. Our next table will be the before tax cash flow for the sale, and we first get the sales price from above at D33, and then the selling costs can be found by taking this and then multiplying it by the selling expenses of 7%, and we have to lock that. And then the mortgage balance will be done by taking this, and then the benefit from sale will be done by taking D67 minus D68 minus D69, which leaves us with $42,425.73. We can copy that directly over, and that is the before tax cash flow for the sale. Next, we take the sales price, which can be found right here, and then the selling costs, which can be found right here, and then the purchase price, which can be found at C7, and we have to lock that. And then the gain on sale, which can be found by taking this minus this minus this